What's up, guys? Ilia with Bout here, as always. So I wanted to show you guys a little bit of the mechanical work on this car. This is one of the more highly tuned FC RX7s that you guys will see come out of Japan. Tomoya Suzuki obviously has been an FC RX7 guy for over 20 years. He's an expert in these cars and he's really good at setting them up. So one of the things that I'm most excited about with this car is that somebody's going to win a really well put together machine, and I just wanted to show you some of those details so that you could see what this car is really all about. So first, this is a foresight hood, which is super sick. You don't really see these very much anymore. So you'll see that this is an FC engine, but it's got an REW intake manifold, which works quite a bit better, especially for V-mount applications. It flows really well. It's got a conversion spacer here to convert to the REW intake manifold so that you can still use an FC lower intake manifold. One thing that's super cool is these pulleys right here are the updated FD style with the micro rib belts instead of the big fat V belts like FCs use, so they're a lot less likely to slip. Way better grip on the water pump. They just work really well. This is actually extremely rare. I remember when I first saw an engine bay shot of one of Tomoya's cars, I sat there looking for pulleys like this for like a month and I couldn't find where to buy them. Honestly, I still don't know, but so, you know, he's got this really cool pulley set. And one thing that I love about this car is some of the attention to detail. Like, check out the heat wrap on the oil metering pump lines, right? So he's still got a functional OMP for you rotary guys, you know what that is. And then he's got heat wrap on the lines so that the lines don't deteriorate prematurely next to the exhaust housing and next to some of the hot parts of the motor. Then he's got heat wrap on the lower radiator hose. Again, it's not even that close to the turbo, but you can just tell the amount of attention to detail and care that Tomoya exercises when preparing his cars. This is a TD06 25G turbo. It's good for over 400 horsepower. You can easily get into the fives with a turbo of this size. So plenty of overhead for whatever power the new owner wants to make. Tomoya himself has constructed the V-mount cooling system. One of the things I really love about this V-mount setup, first, just the intercooler is pretty nicely designed. Even the shape of the end tanks, the way that the end tanks will actually spill out into the intercooler to help with flow is really nice. Pretty good setup. Most of the time when you see a V-mount on an RX7, it means that you've got two oil coolers in the corners, right? You've got one under this headlight and one under the other headlight. On this car, Tomoya managed to fit an oil cooler above the radiator, which is really, really cool because it protects the oil cooler. It means that if you do go off on the track, if you like hit an apex curve, whatever, you're not risking your oil coolers because they're not mounted in the corners. My own FD has oil coolers in the corners, and I can tell you that I think about them all the time. If I like get into a little bump with somebody in tandem, if I jump an apex curve too hard, whatever, I'm always wondering like, man, I hope my oil coolers are still okay. So I love the way that Tomoya did the oil cooler on this car. It's also a super large oil cooler, really big surface area, which is awesome for rotary engines because rotaries do use a lot of oil cooling specifically. So come here, check that out. You can actually pop the camera right in here. Like, yeah, get way in there. And then you'll see this is the radiator right here, right? And then right above the radiator, that second core you see is the oil cooler. So the radiator and oil cooler are actually stacked together, and then obviously up top is the intercooler. So this is a really unique setup. I don't really see a lot of V-mount systems that are set up this way on rotary engines and on FCs in particular. So I think that's really, really nice. You can also even see how the BN bumper is pretty cleanly ducted right up to the radiator, which I really love. That means it controls airflow to the radiator well. Then he's also got ducting up top. You can't really see it too much, but he's got ducting on the sides as well. So he's really directing airflow correctly. So, you know, you'll see stuff like that all over the car. The swirl pot that he's got here to evacuate air out of the water system. The oil line here, again, is heat wrapped and heat protected. The car is just really thoroughly and carefully designed. Everything's really well thought out. It's really carefully packaged. And I think that it's a really impressive example. Unlike a lot of American cars and American tuned rotaries, there's not too much done to this car. US guys love to like billet the whole car and make everything so fancy that nothing really works anymore. This car is just simple enough to be super reliable. It still has all the OEM Mazda stuff that keeps it running well, but it's also well laid out enough to be a really proper, good track car. So that gets me really excited about it. Check out some of the other stuff. The crank angle sensor is factory, easy to use, easy to tune. You can use it with a Power FC, which is the ECU this car is on right now, or you can use it with a Haltech or any other ECU. The power steering pump is also factory. Mazda power steering pumps work pretty well. You know, again, just like a simple setup. It's got FC ignition coils, just the stock coils. Again, easy to use, easy to replace trackside. You don't have to go looking for them. They're not like hard to find or like wired all funny, so you don't know how they work. So I really think that this car is a perfect balance of enough custom parts to make it really reliable, really tough and reliable on the track, but not so custom that the car is a pain in the ass to deal with when you own it over a long period of time. So that's one of the things I wanted to show you guys. Tomoya really loved this chassis. He put a lot of work and time and effort into designing this car to make sure that it's mechanically functional. So I think that the person that wins this car is going to be really happy with how this car is set up. Let's go over to the back of the car too. So back here, you guys will notice that everything's pretty clean too. You'll see that the battery has a really good tie down right behind the passenger seat. So that's really nice. It's out of the way. It's in a clean spot. The actual swirl tank of the fuel system is really nice. With factory RX7s, they do tend to experience fuel slosh, especially when the fuel tank is kind of low on gas. This has a lift pump inside the gas tank that then goes to the swirl tank or the slosh tank in the trunk. That way you don't experience any fuel slosh. There's a fuel pump inside the swirl tank as well. It's an R33 GTR pump. So that actually runs the fuel to the engine. So this way you don't have to worry about fuel slosh. You don't have to worry about fueling issues when you're driving the car hard at the track. Again, you can see that everything back here is pretty cleanly wired. It's very tidy and it's well set up. So this is a car that somebody really put a lot of time and effort into. So footwork wise, this car has a bunch of really cool stuff on it too. It's got knuckles of Tomoya's own design. Again, he's been driving these chassis for 20 years, right? So he knows exactly how to set up a really good knuckle for it to get it to steer well and have a lot of angle and drift. It's got extended front control arms, which is kind of like an FC drift trick where you can use a Zenki front control arm and then attach a bolt-on plate to extend the track width of the car. So you can see it's got good track width, good clearance and angle. It's got a Mazda Speed 4.3 diff, right? So it's a two-way diff made by Mazda Speed, which is awesome because obviously Mazda Speed knows how to make a good differential. So it's effectively an OEM diff. It's a Mazda performance diff, two-way differential, clutch type, so it's good for drifting. And then he's got a 4.3 ring and pinion in the back of the car too, so that the gearing's a little shorter. It gets up into the RPM band a little bit easier and it spools that 25G turbo a little bit better. So stuff like that, again, is just like, you set this car up if you've been drifting FCs and RX7s for decades, right? It's like not too much. It's none of that bullshit that like you just order off a catalog and then you make a car that's so fancy that it's impossible to actually run regularly. This is the kind of car that you build after you've been doing this for years and years and years, and you just do the modifications that are really necessary, the stuff that makes the car awesome to drive, but nothing beyond that. So I think this car is going to be really awesome for someone because of that.